I was thinking about the words of that song, that song, Knowing Jesus. You know, it's like, has some of the simplest lyrics ever, but when you think about it, it's probably one of the most powerful songs. I always listen to, I don't know why I'm like already weirdly emotional this morning, but I listen to Fernando Ortega sing that all the time, and I just think like, that is the beauty of the simplicity of the only thing that matters in this life. And it's funny, like we've been talking about it throughout this week off and on, and Michaela and I have had conversations about this, and other people have, but that the last verse, I think, is something that, no, I don't think. I know that it's something that when you forfeit it, when you forsake it, when you end run around it, when you avoid it, when you nullify it, when you malign it, or when you reduce it, there's no way that you can have a knowing of Jesus. And that last verse says, "Oh, to know the power of your risen life, and to know you in your suffering, to become like you in your death, my Lord, so with you to live and never die." And it's so many people want to do an end run around the suffering of Christ. And there's no way to have a knowing of Him apart from that suffering. I think that that's something that the church has so grievously and strategically, by the secret doctrines of demons, removed, is to know Christ by being unified and suffering with Him. I was just thinking, I just got told that, let me set this down real quick. For those of you that are familiar with Dr. Michael Heiser, faithful brother, faithful teacher and preacher, faithful just minister of the word, faithfully standing the test of time. You know, that's the biggest thing in the faith, is to see faithfulness, to see somebody who's stood firm in the faith, unwavering, steadfast, resolute all the way to the end. But he just announced last night that he's got a week or two to live. So and what he laid out, even in his public announcement, is only testifying to the gospel of Jesus Christ. That it's the only thing that matters at the end of the day. So I think about that today, even as we lead into what we're going to be talking about with continuing on in our Matters of the Heart series. And the Matters of our Heart series that we're going to cover today is what it looks like to live with intentionality. Dr. Michael Heiser, one example of so many throughout the faith that have lived their entire life with intentionality. And we're going to make this juxtaposition, we're going to make this argument that the deep matter of the heart that gets exposed is when we go from having good intentions to being rightly intentional. Everybody tracking? That's what we're going to be talking about, because most people, most, live their entire lives out from what they intended to do, what their intentions were. They defend their intentions. They stand behind their intentions. They wrap themselves in their intentions, but they were never intentional. Major, major distinction. We've heard this axiom, right? The road to hell is paved with good and... Oh, everybody knows that axiom. How is it that every person knows the same exact axiom, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? We often know the context of it when somebody speaks it, right? It's in the right context, and we're like, oh yeah, that's absolutely right. But what we don't know is that many of us, especially in our Christian paradigm, live out from the same exact axiom, not knowing that the road to hell is actually paved with all the intentions, no matter how good or virtuous they are in your eyes, yet they miss the heart of God. It's actually a Portuguese proverb. I didn't know that. I had to say, like, what was the origins of this, right? And there's a couple different layers of origins, but they say it originally appeared in an English newspaper in 1828. Was the first time it was like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And the coiner or the penner of that phrase, everybody's like, oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. So there's something in us that intrinsically knows and understands that that is a true and trustworthy statement. The road to hell being paved with good intentions speaks to the reality of unintended consequences which occur when making choices presumptuously, regardless of the perceived virtue, right? A perfect example of this would be a father seeking with all of the good, best intentions that he could muster to be a good father, and he thinks that that means being a good provider. So he works and he slaves and he works and he slaves and he works and he slaves and he builds a kingdom and he builds a business and he gives all kinds of money. He builds up all kinds of wealth so that when he dies, he can leave a legacy to his children so that he can provide for them a basic level of living that he thinks they're worthy of and they're owed. And his whole life is centered around good intentions. He intended the best for his kids and his wife, but all they wanted was him. And because he wasn't there, because in presumption he thought that that's what they needed, and all of his intentions were as altruistic as they could be, and according to his own mind, they resent, they rebel, they despair, they infidelity, they do whatever. Right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. The result is chaos and resentment and insecurities and self-destructive behaviors. The Sadducees and Pharisees. You can't talk about a bigger road to hell paved with good intentions, right? Good intentions is to keep the letter of the law no matter what. In fact, to add to it and add to it and add to it and add to it. Why? Because their good intentions were to honor God. Every intention of their being was to honor God and make the most of God. But what was the result of their good intentions? What did Jesus literally call them? Sons of hell. You have your father, the devil. You are children of wrath. Literally, all your good intentions paved the road for yourselves to hell, you brood of vipers. It didn't matter what your intentions were. You weren't intentional and pursuing the heart of God, right? This is at the root of the seeker-friendly church, the church growth model, and the social justice-driven gospel coalition going on in our country right now. What is their intention always, ever? Love, 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 love. Love wins. Love wins. Inclusivity, right? Like forbearance, patience, and this love. Their good intentions are to love people for Christ. But no matter how good their intentions are, they actually love people to death. Death eternal. Because they never tell them the truth that sets them free. It's actually all about self-love. So no matter how good their intentions are, it is literally paving the road to hell for so many people. Perhaps even for themselves. Because they weren't intentional about the heart of God, right? Intentions, no matter how presumptuously virtuous, have resulted in unbridled perpetuation of bondage, slavery to sin, offense against the Most High, and a way of truth coming into disrepute. Because we intended to honor God according to our own perspectives, right? Here's the second meaning of what it means to have good intentions, right? That the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The first one is that it speaks to the unintended consequences when making presumptuous decisions, right? The second meaning of it is that it's applicable. Whoa. Somebody help me with my speech impediment. Somebody come lay hands on me, right? This is the one that's very applicable to our Christian walk, is when individuals have the best intentions to undertake a good action, but nevertheless, they fail to ever take any action. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. My intention was to address this. My intention was to cut off this sin nature. My intention was to pursue that friend that I knew that was struggling. My intention was to share the gospel, and I shrunk back. My intention was, and it's paved a road to hell. All the good intentions in the world. You intended to take action, but you never did. The inaction is due to procrastination or laziness or a subversive vice. And such the saying is actually an admonishment that good intentions are meaningless when they're not followed through on. They're absolutely meaningless. The bottom line, good intentions do not guarantee good results. Good intentions do not guarantee godly results. One's good intentions by themselves are worthless. They are a vain thing. To accomplish anything, a person must follow through on the goals and objectives they have set their hearts upon, if there's ever to be any value. How often have we heard one or the other statements? Well, that was my intention, or I intended to. Like, I intended to tell you that, I just never got around to it. And now everything exploded, and now I'm going to tell you what my intentions were, and I go, your intentions don't matter. I've said this all the time to people. I don't care what your intentions were. I care what you did do or didn't do. Intentions alone are a totally vain thing. Let's look at this consequential distinction, okay, between intentionality and intended. Everybody tracking? Because I know it sounds like the same word and I'm using it a lot, so your brain's going to get all scrambled on which one I'm actually talking about. So let's distinguish it. To intend to do something means that you planned or meant to. You planned or you meant to. It is random and unpurposeful. To intend to do something is most often haphazard. Generally, when you intend to do something, it's highly emotionally driven. Everybody tracking? It's an important distinction. It's highly emotionally driven. It is motivated to do something, but it is never activated unto action. Intended or good intentions are generally, always, well, I can't say the two words in the same sentence. Generally, unsuccessful. Intention to do something is generally unsuccessful. And often attached with the lack of success is a negative, unintended consequence comes along with it. This is what it looks like to intend to do something. To be intentional, on the other hand, okay? So now we're doing the juxtaposition. Here's what it looks like to be intentional, is it's calculated. It is willful. It is deliberate. It is filled with designedness, right? It's planned, it's willing, and it's unforced. There's an intrinsic compulsion and a pursuant heart with somebody who is intentional. It is not haphazard in any way whatsoever. It is designed, remember? Although there are strong emotions involved when we're intentional towards things, it is not emotionally driven. Everybody tracking? There's emotions involved, but it's not emotionally driven. Therefore, regardless of obstacles or difficulties and even perceived results, I don't care about the results, it perseveres anyways. Because it is not intended to do something, it is intentional on doing something. It does not stop at activation, but is driven by motivation unto achievement. Intentionality is often successful in its pursuits, and the result of intentionality is this: growth and authentic virtue. That's what happens when you're intentional. Things happen. When we authentically consider it, there's a deep matter of the heart concealed within the juxtaposition of a heart that intends or intended versus the one that is actually utterly intentional. The proverb, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, can be seen in Jesus' warning in Matthew 7. Actually, several times in Matthew 7. It's interesting. Look. Enter by the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and easy is the way that leads to hell. The road to hell is paved with your good intentions. And those who enter by are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life. And those who find it are few. Right? Luke 9 reaffirms this is 57 through, that doesn't even make sense. I have Luke 9, 57 through 22. Whoa. Never even read that verse. So Luke 9. We'll go somewhere in Luke 9, right? It reaffirms the vanity of good intentions. Listen to this. As they were going along the road, someone said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. Oh, so virtuous, so emotionally driven, so emphatic, so motivated. So activated. I'm so activated. I'll follow where you ever go. And Jesus said to him, foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. To another he said, follow me. But he said, Lord, my intention is to follow you. I really want to follow you, but first let me go bury my father. But I'm intending to follow you. Yeah, totally. I'm going to be obedient. I want to follow you wherever you go. But first let me go and bury my father. And Jesus said to him, leave the dead to bury their own dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God. And yet another said, oh, I intend, Jesus. I will follow you, Lord. But first let me say farewell to those who are at my home. That's my intention, Jesus. Look, I'm so I'm emphatic. I intend to follow you. But he says, you are not intentional in following me. All of them intended. Mark 10, and as he was setting out on his journey, a man ran up and knelt before him and asked him, good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus, I want to glorify you. Jesus, I want to follow you. Okay, go ahead and sell everything and then you can follow me. And what happened? The man went away sad. It didn't matter what his good intentions was. He was not intentional in pursuing the Lord. John 12, 42 and 43. Nevertheless, many of the authorities believed in him. They believed in Jesus. The authorities, some of the Sadducees, the Pharisees, and the scribes, they're like, that is who we know who has been prophesied to come. We know the scriptures. Oh my goodness, it's actually here. But for fear of the Pharisees, they did not confess it out loud, so that they would not be put out of the synagogue. Does this sound like church shuddering? Mask wearing? Romans 13 perversions? All of it? It doesn't matter. And it says, for they love the glory that comes from man more than the glory that comes from God. Oh, they intended to glorify him. They just couldn't quite do it because they weren't intentional in glorifying him. John 6, 60 through 66, right? The disciples, what are they? Disciples. The disciples who intended to follow Jesus until it got hard. And they say, this is a hard teaching. Oh, Jesus, I was tracking with you up to now. Now you want me to know you in suffering? You want me to know you in death so I can be with you in life? You want me, this is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? And many of his disciples, what were they? Departed from him that day. Didn't matter what their good intentions were. They were not intentional for the heart of God. Ananias and Sapphira. Right? Acts 5. Peter said to them, Ananias, why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit to keep back from yourselves a part of the proceeds of the land? Why is it that you have contrived this deed in your heart? Oh, Ananias, you've not lied to men, you've lied to God. You intended to look like you were blessing the church. You intended to look like you wanted to bring God glory, and yet it was still always about you. You're dead. And your wife is dead too. It's a big deal, right? And here's the greatest woe of all of those who merely intend. Greatest woe of all. Matthew 7. Think of it all the time. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. I don't care that you want to do the will of my Father. It's those who do actually the will of my Father. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord. On that day, many will say, what's the quantity? Many will say, Lord, Lord, look, I intended to do. Did we not prophesy in your name, God? I intended to bring you glory and cast out demons in your name, God. And I intended to advance your kingdom. And I did mighty works in your name, Lord. And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of iniquity. I don't care about your good intentions. Have you noticed that? Good intentions. They all meant to honor the Lord. All these scriptures we worked through, and they all meant to walk with him, but they would not seek him intentionally. And all their end was the exact same. What was the exact same of all their end? Hell. The road to hell for all of these that we just went through was paved with nothing but good intentions. Jesus gives this powerful rebuke and admonishment when we come full circle back to Luke 9. We started in Luke 9, worked through, and then he summarized this in Luke 9. Jesus said to them, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. That to me has been the one singular verse that has defined my life. I literally see this word picture so often. Like we used to have this old power. I'm from Moline, Illinois, right? Home of John Deere. So any farmers are like, home of John Deere. Everything's John Deere. My grandpa worked for John Deere. Everything is all about John Deere. And we had this old steel-wheeled single-bladed plow from old school farm implement with two little handles on it. And my dad always had it somewhere around the yard, like for yard art or whatever, right? And we're home of John Deere. It's all about the plow. Revolutionize the plains, right? And so as I've been walking with the Lord, I picture this verse all the time. No one who puts his hand in the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. I've literally seen that old rusty piece of yard art and literally a holy angel lashing my hands to it with leather straps, lashing into it, and it's cutting into my wrist and it's cutting into my hand and there's blood dripping out and it's like, lash it, God, because I will let go. Oh. If you don't by your power, God, lash my hand to it, I'll let go. So I picture just lashing it over and over and over and then just blood dripping I will not look back. I will not look back, God. No one who puts his hand in the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you have required of me, I will see it through to completion. Not by the strength of my will, but by the strength of your spirit in me, God. I will intentionally pursue you. I don't intend to pursue you. I will pursue you. I will seek your face while it may be found. I will cut off the flesh and every branch that does not bear fruit. And even the branches that do bear fruit, cut them off still, God, so that they would bear even more fruit. I don't care. I'm going that way. Can you imagine being unfit for the kingdom of God? But you intended. You intended. Oh, man, I think of it all the time. Matthew Henry says this, those who, regarding this verse, right, and Matthew 7:62, those who begin with the work of God must resolve to go on with it, or they will make nothing of it. What will they make of it? Nothing. I don't care what you intended to do. I don't care how much you intended to glorify the Lord. I don't care how much you intended to rightly love, to rightly mercy, to rightly grace. I don't care what your intentions are. Those who begin with the work of God must resolve to go on with it, or they will make nothing of it. Looking back inclines to drawing back, and drawing back is to perdition. What's perdition? Hell. Destruction. Eternal separation from a holy God. It's the road to hell. Those are not fit for heaven, who having set their faces heavenward, face about. But he, and he only, that endures to the end shall be saved. Do you guys know what it means to be resolute? I wrote about it in my book. I think about this word resolute all the time. Those who have began a good work of God must resolve to see it through to completion with intentionality. It means to be bold, courageous, steadfast, enduring, persistent, relentless, tenacious, constant, faithful, unyielding, unshakable, unwavering, unbending, undaunting, unfaltering, and uncompromising. Does that sound like a lot of uns? This is what it looks like to be resolute for God. Not intended to, but intentional. Unshakable, unwavering, unbending, undaunting, unfaltering, uncompromising, unyielding, faithful, constant, tenacious, relentless, bold, courageous, steadfast, enduring, and persistent for God. For the heart of God, not for the letter of the law. For the heart, the heart, the heart, the heart. The Lord is no respecter of your good intentions. He is no respecter of your good intentions. He has very little patience with all the good intentions you could ever say and proclaim before his throne like they will in Matthew 7. But the Lord does delight in those who are intentional. Exodus 33, 7 through 11. You guys hear me talk about it all the time through all different lenses of reference, right? It's so applicable. You grab a drink. There's layers contained within Exodus 33, layers of the perfect, definition of intentionality versus intended to. I'll read it for you, 7 through 11. Now, Moses used to take the tent of meeting is talking about, and pitch it outside the camp, far from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise up, and each would stand at his tent door, and they would watch Moses until he'd gone into the tent. And when Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise up and worship, each at his own tent. Thus the Lord used to speak with Moses face to face as a man speaks with his friend. When Moses turned again into the camp, his assistant, or his young aide, Joshua, son of Nun, a young man, refused to leave the tent of meeting. The Lord had a grievance against the people of Israel. Everybody tracking? And that's why the tent was now outside the camp. There was a lot going on here. There's a lot going on in Exodus. There's a reason why the tent was pitched outside the camp. It had been in the midst thereof. And now it's outside the camp. Yet, though the tabernacle was removed from their very physical presence, everyone who was predisposed to pursue the Lord, to seek after him, was welcome to. Then those who sought the Lord would go to the tent of meeting. Those who sought the Lord would go to the tent of meeting. They would seek the Lord's face. They would go boldly and confidently to pursue the Lord. Yet everybody else only ever intended to. They would rise up at their own tent door. When they saw Moses going, they would fall down and worship. They intended to glorify the Lord, but they never put it into action. See, all who sought the Lord went to the tent of meeting. And like Joshua, son of Nun, he refused to leave the tent of meeting. He didn't intend to know God's face. He didn't intend to know and understand the heart of the Lord. He didn't just intend to glorify the Lord with his life. He intentionally was poured out like a drink offering and said, "You will not get me to leave this tent. I must have my God at all cost." At all cost. It is not for the ease of triflers. No man who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of heaven. I must have my God at all cost. I refuse to leave. The people were encouraged. They were invited to seek the face of God and the heart of God and the voice of God and the intercessions of God for their sins and the reconciliation of God and the favor of God. The tent's right there. You are freely, I'm beckoning you to come, but you choose not to. Yet you say we're the highly favored ones of God. We're Israel. We're the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Doesn't matter. It does not matter what you intend to do. What matters is what you intentionally do to pursue the heart of the Lord. The people would watch Moses go to the tent and meet with the Lord. They would stand outside their tents in fear and awe, but they would not make their intention of their own willingly, voluntarily, purposely, resolutely to go to the tent of meeting on their own. If our hearts go forth towards God to meet him, he will graciously come down and meet us. Don't we understand that, beloved? He's intentional towards you. Why in the world wouldn't you be intentional towards him? He is all about our intentionality, not our intentions. Matthew, Psalm 14:2 says this, "The Lord looks down from heaven on the children of men to see if there are any who understand, any who seek him." Not who like him, not who appreciate him, any who seek him. See, that presupposes intentionality. Hebrews 11:6, "And without faith it is impossible to please God. For whoever would draw near to God, you draw near to God, must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him." He rewards those who seek him. Not those who like him, not those who had every intention to honor him, not those who really, really appreciate him. Not those who, like, I think of some of the conversation I had with Michaela this week, all these drivers, these pushers, these ministries, right? These they think they're movers and shakers. They're using language. What is it? We're building the plane as we're flying. It's like the same little emotional carnal quips. We're just going to build the plans. We're going that way. I'm going to honor the Lord. I'm going to honor the Lord. Watch what I'm going to do for you, God. All the good intentions in the world. Paving a road to hell. What did God ask you to do? What did God require of you? Did you commune with Him? Are you in an attentive meeting? Is it all about you and Him and intentionally pursuing His heart? What would God say to you? Lord, I did all these things in your name. I don't care what you intend to do in my name. I never asked you to build a plane while I was flying. That was so that you could feel validated by men around you. So that you could feel validated by the kingdom that you built. So that you could bring in money from donors all over the world because you're doing something. Had nothing to do with me. Crazy, right? The bottom line is that the Lord often shows Himself to only be as serious as we are. We're intentional in prayer. We're intentional in fasting. We're intentional in dying to the flesh. We're intentional in pursuing the Lord. We go to the tent of meeting. We knock. We seek. We look after. We search for. As for precious treasure, more precious than gold and silver. We do these things. And He goes, I will show myself as serious as you are. Just like Jesus told the people that were in His hearing. Listen, gents, I speak in parables. Because they don't really want to know the heart of my Father. They don't want the heart of my Father. See, I'm only as serious as they are willing to be serious. I'm intentional, be intentional. I'm intentionally pursuing you, intentionally pursue me. I mean, how good do marriages last when they're one-sided? How long do they last? You pursue the husband to the wife or the wife to the husband. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. I love you. I want to sanctify you. I want to build you up. I want to make you radiant. I'm going to do these things. I want to commune with you. I want intimacy with you. And they're like, I mean, I intend to reciprocate, but I'm never going to. How long does that last? It's the exact same thing with the bridegroom to his bride. Exact same thing. Jeremiah 29:11 through 14. Most emotionally predatory scripture of all time. I can't say that. One of the most. We hear it all the time, right? For I know the plans I have for you. It gets used all the time out of context. It gets used all the time to leave somebody dead in their trespasses or to whitewash their sin issues. It gets used out of context. It was very particular to the Hebrews and to the Jews at the time. They were in captivity in Babylon. It's just always used out of context. But listen to what the Lord says about the context of intentionality. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when? Oh, you mean there's something in there? When? You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart. Oh my goodness. The Lord is looking for intentionality. And then He finishes, and I will be found by you, just so you know. Let me satisfy that promise to you. Matthew 7:7-8. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who seeks finds, and the one who knocks it will be open. What's that presuppose? Intentionality. It's on you. Revelation 3:20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice, not just hears His voice, and opens the door, I will come in to him and eat with him and he with me. If. The ifs of the Lord presuppose a life of intentionality that openly reproaches the intentions of apathy. Want me to say that again? The ifs of the Lord presupposes a life of intentionality that openly reproaches the intentions of apathy. Very distinct. Proverbs 2. My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments. I mean, dude, I'm like, how do we miss this? Why is it? There's so much Pollyanna gamesmanship in the church. I just can't wrap my mind around it. If you receive my words and treasure up my commands with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your ear to understanding. Everything is hyper intentional. Yet, if you call out for insight and cry aloud for understanding, intentionality, and if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasure. I've been on treasure hunts. That's a highly intensive activity of pursuit where you're resolute in the pursuit of seeking after hidden treasures. Then, then circle it, you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. 1 Chronicles 28:9. As for you, my son Solomon, know the God of your father and serve him with your whole heart. How much of your heart? Does it matter that you intended to serve him with your whole heart? No, it's definitive, declarative statement. Serve him with your whole heart and with a willing mind. Remember, to be intentional means that you're willing. For the Lord searches all the hearts and understands every intent of your thoughts. If you seek him, he will let you find him. But if you forsake him, he will reject you forever. Proverbs 8:17. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. It's crazy, right? See, the church doesn't like to talk about this because we got the Calvinism and we got the Arminianism and we got the love-win-isms and we got the social justiceism and we got the good intent-ism. Well, the Lord knows your heart. Well, the Lord knows your heart. The Lord knows your intentions. I'm like, yeah, he does. He just said, I know every intent of your thoughts. He does know your intentions. He doesn't care about your intentions. He cares about your intentionality. He's no respecter of your intentions. So the church has reduced it so it leaves everybody perfectly lukewarm. Just perfectly lukewarm. Neither hot nor cold. Or perfectly carnal. Pursue it because you have good intentions. Go ahead and undergird BLM and say love wins. And undergird LGBT. And undergird this. And undergird that. Because you're intending to rightly love people for Jesus' sake. And he's like, I spit you out of my mouth. I don't care what your intentions were. You didn't pursue my heart. Here's a side note. I often wonder how many people who fully intended to honor and glorify the Lord, for whatever reason, succumbed to the sin of presumption and suffered unfathomably from it. I think about those in Egypt all the time. And this is just speculation, just stuff I think about. But he said, put the blood over the door. How many didn't do it? They intended to honor the Lord. They intended to be a people. They intended to remember this God who really they hadn't seen and communed with in over 400 years because they've been in slavery. And they didn't want to look foolish. They didn't want to look stupid. They thought Moses was a poor leader, that he had no right to be followed. Who is this guy? He was an Egyptian. Like, yeah, I want to honor the Lord, but I'm not going to put the blood over my door. How many? And they went on and suffered for it. How many intended who were walking with Jesus, who followed Jesus, who were there at Calvary, and they saw him be killed, and then they saw him be resurrected. They knew that the stone was rolled away and that the tomb was empty, and they intended to honor his words and follow the Lord and be obedient to him and wait for him in Jerusalem. They intended to do that, but then they realized that their families might suffer because their bank account was dwindling, that they needed to get back to work or they would lose their job, that they needed to travel a long distance. So I intend to do what you say, Lord, but I also want to make sure and glorify you by being a good steward. How often do you hear that language for good intentions? I'm being a good steward of what God... I want to be a good steward, Lord. I intend to be here waiting for the outpouring of your Spirit, but I've waited 7 days now. I'm going to glorify you by making sure I'm a good provider for my family. And they left. How many of them intended? And they went on and suffered for it. How about the 5 foolish virgins and the 5 wise virgins? They're all the same. They're all virgins. They're all waiting for the same thing. They all intended to honor the Lord, but only 5, half of them were intentional about honoring the Lord. They waited, and they waited, and they waited though he tarried, and they kept their stores of oil, and they were obedient to what he required of them. Intentionality. And he goes, them? No, you come in and sit down and eat with me. Come in and sit down and eat with me. It's a big deal. The apostate reductionism, whoa, that was a big chunk of spit. Can I have a bib? Anybody have a bib or something? The apostate reductionism of the gospel by every whim and error of doctrine is plaguing our nation and plaguing our church. Those who tolerate the Nicolaitans and the Jezebels, those who proclaim they are wealthy and need of nothing because of all their good intentions to honor the Lord. Look at our churches, look at our buildings, look at our capital campaigns, look at our ministries, look at our impact, look at who we're rubbing shoulders with. They say they're wealthy in need of nothing, that they're honoring the Lord, but they do so according to their own understanding, their own pleasure, and their own personal validation. Those who are dogmatic in their good intentions to beat people over the head with scriptures, but they have never been intentional about pursuing the heart of the Lord for people. It's my intention to correct them with truth. I'm loving them. I'm loving them. I'm loving them. I'm loving them. I'm like, they don't feel loved. They would never think that you were loving them. They would think that you want to assert your knowledge on them and their dogma. But if you were good intentioned, I was trying to love them to truth to set them free from deception. I'm trying to open their eyes and peel back the scales. But see, you weren't intentional for God's heart for people. Totally different posture. Those who intend to be loving, yet in their good intentions, they leave their most treasured relationships, their beloved ones, dead in their sins. They paved the road to hell for them because they withheld the truth that sets men free. But I was being loving. I was being tolerant. I was being patient. Doesn't matter. So then, here lies the question. What intentions must be reconciled in your heart? Reconciled and transformed into that which is intentional. What is in your heart and in your life that you have intended to do that must be reconciled and put into intentionality? Is it fathers to your children? Wives to your husbands? Faith in action? Authentic love that may be costly? Right? Sacrificial service? Is it generosity? I intended to do this. I intended to do this, Lord. Intimacy and communion with the Lord. Lord, I want to seek you, but I'm busy. I intend to get alone with you. God, you know my intentions, though. I got things going. You know my heart, Lord. I want to do that for you. I just can't because I got things pressing on me right now. Right? How about the mortification of the flesh? How about stuff so simple as fitness or health? Like, let's get super tangible, right? Like, I intend to throw this off. I intend to start this or stop that or whatever. But we never quite bring it into intentionality. What do we need to reconcile in our hearts? It is time to live with intentionality for the things of the heart of the Lord because He has been intentional towards us. He did not just intend to reconcile the world to Himself. He intentionally did reconcile the world to Himself. He did leave the throne. He did leave the heavenly realms. He didn't say, man, I really want to rescue them. It was my intention. I knew that this was going to happen in the garden. And I knew the curse of the sin and the fall. My intention was to bring reconciliation to all humanity, to restore a right relationship with it. But you know my heart, Father. I intended to be obedient to your will. He didn't intend. He intentionaled. Everybody tracking? Big difference. Redeem the time, beloved. Your intentions are a vain thing. My intentions are a vain thing. You will know a tree by its fruit. I don't care if you tell me you're an apple tree. I see thorns and briars and thistles. I see blackberries and whatever berries. You will know a tree by its fruit. Faith alone is futile. Your faith will be reproved in steadfast intentionality for the Lord and for the hearts of men. And anywhere in here, has anybody heard me say that it's works-based to glorify the Lord? Anywhere. That's what I always get. Oh, so you're preaching works-based, salvation by works, a righteousness of your own, a justification of your own. No, the exact opposite. I'm talking about the wellspring of your heart. If you knew how intentionally God has pursued you and is pursuing you this very day, you couldn't help but from an overflow of the heart, out of the heart the mouth speaks, to intentionally pursue your God. I know the tent's out there. I'm going to it. Those who sought the Lord went and met with them. He's right there. The tent of meeting is right there. The tent of meeting is in your chair in your bedroom. The tent of meeting is on your bed. The Bible's on your bedstand. That person's across the street. That broken relationship is right there. It's on you. Not for salvation by works, but out of a wellspring and overflow of the heart. 2 Chronicles 69. The eyes of the Lord range throughout the whole of the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to Him. It's all about intentionality. We ought to be like Abraham, who by faith obeyed when he was called to go to a place he would later receive as an inheritance. And though he did not know where he was going, he obeyed and went. And guess what? It was accredited to him as righteousness. Oh, God said go. Resolute. Unwavering, uncompromising, unfading, unyielding, staunch, steadfast, stalwart, bold, courageous. I'm going. He said, follow him. I'm going to follow you, Lord. I don't care what the cost is. It's not emotionally based. I don't intend to follow you. It's not going to be unsuccessful. I'm following you because you required of me, so you must be equipping me to continue to stay the course. It's crazy, right? We need to be like Hannah, who intentionally sought the Lord year after year after year after year, pleading and interceding. She did not grow weary of intentionally pursuing God. She sought the Lord, was fully committed, and she was heard. Right? We need to be like Moses, who went into what would be 80 days of fasting to draw near to God and make intercessions for a rebellious people. Oh, it's crazy. 40 days back. Are you joking me? You literally melted down all your gold to make a calf to worship? Like, you see what's going on up there. I'll fast again for you. I'll make intercessions for you. I'll intentionally pursue God on your behalf. God, don't destroy them. Don't destroy them. God said, I'll raise up a people out of you, Moses. No. Lord, I'm pursuing you on behalf of them. How intentional have you done that for people in your life that are rebellious, that are wayward, that are double-minded? Crazy. We need to be like Enoch or Noah, who kept themselves pure from the temptations of the world all around them, no matter what was going on, because they wanted the heart of God at all costs. And we ultimately need to be like Jesus, who pursued the heart of people, because he intentionally pursued the heart of the Father. That's why he pursued the heart of people. I'm coming for you. I'm going to wash your feet. I'm going to bind up your wounds. I don't care what you say about me. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. I'm coming to the muck and the mire. I'm not standing outside of it pointing back at you. I'm not standing outside of it pushing you up out of it. Wow, I'm really spitting today. I'm not doing these things. I'm coming for you into the muck and the mire to experience everything that you experience. So that you will know when I say I'm your comforter, I'm your comforter. So that you know when I say I'm the true and better high priest of Melchizedek, you will know that I am the high priest that makes appropriate intercessions for you, and they're never going to fail you. Never going to fail you. Jesus prayed. Jesus sequestered. Jesus served. Jesus sought. Jesus bound up. He stood up. He made known. Why? Because he was intentional for the heart of the Father. The bottom line, beloved, is seek the Lord while he may be found. Seek him with your whole heart. Zephaniah 2, 1-3 says this, gather together, yes, gather together, O shameful nation, before the decree takes effect, before the day passes away like chaff, before there comes upon you the burning anger of the Lord, before there comes upon you the day of the anger of the Lord. Seek the Lord, all you humble of the land, you who do his just commandments. Seek righteousness. Seek humility. Perhaps you may be hidden on the day of the anger of the Lord. Perhaps. But it's all about your intentionality. The Lord puts forth this open invitation. Freely and lovingly, you get to choose. The tent of meeting's right there. It's right there. They all knew it was right there. Those who sought the Lord went to it. Isaiah 55. Come, everyone who thirsts. Come to the waters. And he who has no money, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money, without price. Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Listen diligently to me. You hear his pleading for your intentionality. He's pleading for your intentionality. Be intentional. And eat what is good, and delight yourselves in rich food, and incline your ear, and come to me. Hear that your soul may live, and I will make with you an everlasting covenant, my steadfast love, promised to David. Who doesn't want that covenant? Oh my goodness! Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way. Every single one of these attributes is about intentionality. You get to choose. And the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord. You return to the Lord, that he may have compassion on you, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. And intentionality, ladies and gents. May our hearts resound. Psalm 27:8. You have said, Lord, seek my face. Your face, O Lord, I'll seek. That's resoluteness. My hand's on the plow. I touched it. You better lash it, God. I put my hand to it. I better not look back, because I'll be unfit for the kingdom. I'm resolutely pursuing you, God. Psalm 119:19. Open to me the gates of righteousness, that I may enter into them and give thanks, Lord. Open them, and I will go through them. That's intentionality. Psalm 63:1-4. O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. How does he seek him? Earnestly. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you in a dry, weary land where there is no water. So I have looked upon you in the sanctuary, beholding your power and glory. Because of your steadfast love, because your steadfast love is better than life, my lips will praise you. So I will bless you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands. My God, earnestly I seek you. We need to get this, ladies and gents, because this is a deep matter of the heart. All the good intentions in the world, and I don't care how often you attach Jesus' name to it. I don't care how charismatic your prayers and your dancing and your hand lifting up. I don't care how important you think your knowledge is to beat somebody else over the head with. I don't care what your intentions are. And the reason why I don't care what your intentions are is because the Lord has no respect for what your intentions are. He only cares what you're intentional for, not what your intentions are. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. We have to throw this off now in this crooked and perverse generation that has so reduced the gospel, that has so reduced a walk with your God, that has so reduced the power and the giftings of the Spirit and the outpouring of the Spirit, that has so reduced what love and authentic love is. It has reduced everything and made it all about your intentions, and never once has anybody called us up to what is the intentional pursuit of God for our hearts, that we might rightly return it to Him for an intentional pursuit of His heart. We got to get this right, because we've totally blown it. So as a deep matter of our heart, beloved, let us, 1 Chronicles 16:11, seek the Lord and His strength. Seek His presence continually. The tent of meeting is wide open. It's wide open. You now, through Christ Jesus, can confidently and boldly enter into the throne room. No fear of reproach. You can look on the face of God and the Son of Jesus Christ. You can look on His face and live and not die. Why are we wasting our times? That's a wrap.